Hello, I'm Cheryl Meyer, and I'm otherwise known as Cheryl M. Health Muse. And what my goal is to inspire you to lead a healthier life. So when I proposed my podcast, I proposed that we present it in two different segments. The first one is It Feels Good to Feel Good, Future Proof Your Health, where I get to share everything I have learned to return my health back to relative wellness and to live a pain-free life in spite of the fact that I have autoimmune disease. But the second part of my podcast is this episode, and that's Tell Me Your Story, the Health Muse is in. My concept with this is it's all fine and well that you hear me tell my story, but I get a lot of, it's all fine and well that it worked for you, but it's not going to work for me. And I wanted you to hear that there are lots of people out there that have made changes in their lifestyle that have supported their health and brought them back to relative wellness. We all have a couple things in common. We all owned our own health. Whatever the doctor was suggesting we did was going on a parallel path to us making these lifestyle changes where we did things that cleaned up our toxic load. We all pay attention to our body. You'll hear jazz in the background because I want you to listen to the rhythm of your health, and I want you to pay attention to what your body is telling you. My body had been trying to tell me that I was going to topple over into toxic load for some time. I just wasn't listening. So if you clean up your lifestyle and if you listen to your body, you have a very good chance not of being deprived in any way, but returning to feeling darn good. And that's what these podcasts are really all about. So thank you for joining me. This is going to be a Tell Me Your Story, the Health Muse is in episode, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that we all inspire you to lead a healthier, happier life. Thank you. Welcome to another edition of Tell Me Your Story, the Health Muse is in. I have a fabulous guest to share with you today, all the way from New York. His name is Adam Weber, and Adam many years ago, got MS. He was a corporate executive. Like me, he was working 24/7 and probably not paying attention to things that were creeping up in his body like I wasn't, until one day he had no option but to pay attention. But I want him to tell you his story because he's come up with a different strategy to control his MS than the one that I came up with to get rid of my autoimmune disease. There are many paths back to health, but the thing that's common with all of them is you. You have to own it. You have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to research. And I'm not saying we don't need our doctors, but go back and have robust conversations with them, because you are the only person in your body that knows how you feel. And I think today's story is going to give you hope in an entirely new direction of something that you can do to bring yourself back to wellness. So welcome, Adam. I am so thrilled to have you here today.
Hi, Cheryl. Thank you so much for having me today.
So why don't you start by telling your story? I know it started even before you had children.
Yes,
Because
before I
your
had
children are
children.
young. So explain that you were married, but explain your corporate life and how you were getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and it was driving you crazy.
Yeah, no, was I was working for one of the world's large commercial real estate firms in New York City, based out of New York City, and primarily I was doing a lot of work in New Jersey also. And I was having a lot of chronic things that started happening, pains, aches, um, things just weren't right. I mean, I was starting to have problems with my balance. And, occasionally I would have some vision issues. And then I said, I'm the son of a doctor. At the time, my dad was still alive. He said, you need to go see somebody. Let me recommend you. Now, my father was a doctor at NYU, but he sent me to a specialist up at Columbia. And I visited numerous doctors. I visited about 5 different doctors, all giving me different diagnoses, everything from you're getting old to you have fibromyalgia. And they would, tell me just relax, not be running around as much and as hard as I was, take this pill, take that pill. And I said, I can't do this anymore. So finally, after seeing the numerous doctors, I had problems with my back. And after having a surgery, they said, oh no, some of your issues with your balance and other from 2 herniated discs, the L4 and the L5. And I said, somebody finally found it. They know what they're doing. So I scheduled the surgery, supposed to take about an hour, hour and 15 minutes, ended up taking more than 3 hours. Doctor says, you'll follow, didn't tell me right there on the spot. He says, you will follow up and be in my office in 2 weeks and we'll, see how you're healing. It was a microscopic, small incision because of the way these surgeries are done. And he told me, he pulled up the MRIs in a very doctor-like way. And again, I'm the son of a doctor, so I'm not being critical, but he just wants to get to the point. He started pointing to different things on my MRI and said, I want to send you to Mount Sinai in New York City, to the Corinne Goldsmith Center. Goes, because I believe you have multiple sclerosis. And I had heard the term before, but never knew what it
And the
really
fact
was.
that he even knew that that's what he was looking at, because all of the autoimmune diseases are very difficult to diagnose.
Yeah,
So
very,
that
very
was a
difficult.
blessing unto itself.
Yeah, he was a top doctor out of Columbia, and as far as and having and again in a place called ONS up in Greenwich, Connecticut, where he owned the surgical center, where he and some other, I just call them the big shot doctors, did their work offsite at the hospital. It's more profitable. They sent me to Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai did further tests and said, we want to confirm you have multiple sclerosis. And I looked it up and I thought, okay, you see everything from the person who's walking around saying, I've got this because there's multiple types of multiple sclerosis, to the kind where you see somebody sitting in a wheelchair. And I said, and they told me I had primary progressive multiple sclerosis, the worst of all types. And they couldn't tell me the cause of it, but they knew that based on my medical history and based on interviewing me, they believed it was probably because of toxic chemicals or something, where I grew up on Long Island and where I one of my specialties in commercial real estate was what were called, the hazardous zones, areas, brownfields, things like that, areas that were once toxic along the Hudson River, and that were now being redeveloped. And I even appraised a GE plant in Westchester County, New York, and they were turning the dirt to put a new retail development there. And when they were doing that, I said, wow, what are they doing with that dirt? It's blue. And they said, no, that's the color of the dirt. Exactly. I had never seen blue dirt in my life before. So it was, look,
And obviously they weren't connecting the dots that was harmful.
No, they weren't. I mean, we're finding out a lot about things that have happened over the years. I mean, there's where I grew up on Long Island, there's, from my last count, there was 47 people in my graduating class of just over 600 people that have had some sort of autoimmune disease, something going wrong. There have been some people that they're not sure, they passed away already. I'm in my early 50s, but these are people that passed away a long time ago. People who have gotten sick, people with issues. I know one of my fellow graduates has MS as well. Our bodies are affected differently by the chemicals, and they're toxic. Plus, as a son of a doctor, every time I'd burp or sneeze, I was being prescribed, and that's a nice way to say it, I was being prescribed another medication. Whether Adam take this, Adam take that, whether it be a lot of antibiotics or other things, Um, and while I had a lot of immunity built up because I'm the son of a doctor and a nurse, and I spent a lot of time after school. I was in private school partially, and I would go to their office, to my dad's office, to study and to spend time there. And it turned out that they thought, oh, you don't get the flu often or at all, really. You don't have a lot of other things because you built up an immunity, that herd immunity that everybody's talking about now. And it was they're not 100% sure, but there's probably a totality of all the things that I went through that had an effect on my body.
There is definitely a functional medicine philosophy, which is what I ended up following for mine, that we have something called toxic load. It can build up over 20 years. Mine actually built up over the course of my entire lifetime, I think, because my joke was always I popped out allergic to Pittsburgh. And when I said that to my functional doctor, she said, have you had the 23andMe test taken? And I said, yes, I have. She said, I want all the backup material because it ends up, I literally did pop out allergic to Pittsburgh. I remember them oiling the streets for coal dust and steel dust when I was a little kid. And my father was a chemist, and he made the decision when I was 4 that we had to get out of there or I might not have survived it. And thank God he connected the dots. But I have something called MTHFR, which means what goes into my body stays in my body. So those toxins, all the way back from when I was first born, never left my body. And when I finally tested for heavy toxic metals, it was like eureka, I had them all. And they were not easy to get out of my body. And they had been tucked in my fat and my bones because my liver didn't know what to do with them anymore. And I got the SNP from both my parents, and they both died from diseases that were toxin related. So I'm sad that I didn't know what I know now. When they were alive, I might have been able to help them. But I don't think we're aware that all these toxins do build up in our body. I had all kinds of signs that something was going wrong, but I was so busy building my business. I was a solopreneur. It went past my brain so fast, I didn't even stop to think about it.
I know I had a similar situation again, growing up in New York, and, an area where were formerly potato fields, also near where the Grumman was, and others where they were building, you know, uh, aircraft and other things, and there were a lot of chemicals in the ground, and these were not things that were most of the time were known until I was older. Because to get rid of those potato fields too, they had to kill everything.
Right.
And
Well, and I don't know about them, but a potato now is sprayed with 39 different chemicals, half of which are neurotoxins
Hmm,
to kill the little eyes because they don't
yeah.
want them growing. But the other half of them that aren't neurotoxins are killing our bees. So if you're not eating organic potatoes, you need to consider that really strongly because you don't need those chemicals in your body. Just
Yeah,
as one thing. Yeah.
no, I've even stopped eating potatoes, honestly, at this point. There's certain foods, my diet is completely different than it was when I was a kid, when I was in college, as a young adult. I'm very careful about what I put into my body food wise. I don't drink alcohol and or anything like that. It Having multiple sclerosis is a game changer. The idea that I don't want to be in a wheelchair, the idea that I want to see my kids grow up and be involved in their world. My older is become well aware of what's going on,
Share how
and
old your kids are because
my
they're
kids are,
gorgeous.
yeah, thank you, I appreciate that. My older is Andrew is 10, and my younger Daniel is 8, and I'm 52. Now, one of the reasons we thought maybe my wife is a 2-time cancer survivor, and we thought the doctors originally thought maybe because of the chemo and stuff, that's why we weren't able to have children at first. But as it turned out, it was because of me. So they did their magic, and we have 2 great sons. Thank you for your comments about them. No, they're all some great kids, and they're 10 and 8 years old, but they're my world and they're my wife's world. And that, we love them to death. And there's such, I don't coach anymore like I used to, but because I physically don't have it in me to do certain things, but I still do as much as I can, attending all their games, attending all their school functions when they're able to have school functions, um, all sorts of things like that. Now, I've even dialed back on my speaking at all, um, but it's fabulous that that I've been able to go and be a big part of my kid's life and my wife's life at this point.
Yeah, no, that's important. And they
Because
will remember that.
because MS in the primary progressive, which, and again, I don't diminish any of the others, is considered the worst type as far as what it does to the body, what it does to you, had the worst effects. I've been able to, with the right mind, the right taking care of myself, ward things off at this point. Not totally, but a lot.
Fantastic. So you now know that you have progressive MS. Did you continue to work or did you make
Oh, no,
other
no.
decisions at that point?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was taught, well, I left the corporate world. It was having an effect on my work. When I did decide to leave the corporate world, I didn't tell them why I was leaving, that was a specific reason. But I did leave. And it's been a great experience, actually, because I didn't just start my own real estate business because I was in the real estate business, but I started my other business and I really started giving a lot more time to being an author and a speaker. I had a lot more time. And we live in a time where you can pivot and do things a different way.
Yeah, no, thank goodness. It did. I kept my business for 3 years, but I had a very well-trained staff. So while I was researching, pretty much I was going in twice a week and telling them what a great job they were doing and handling problems, but I was not doing the day in, day out running of the business. They took it over, and I'm very grateful for that. But I was researching and putting everything into file folders that I was finding. And I was appalled at what I was finding because there were toxins everywhere. What I did was I tripped into the functional community and watched 19 different symposiums with functional doctors. And they had all become functional, all of them, because they got sick and couldn't help themselves, which fascinated me. So I was really paying attention to as they were telling their story, and they were dealing with different issues that the bodies were having. But it kept coming down to stress. And I knew I had a lot of stress because my friends had started pulling me aside and telling me that my stress was out of control, and they just read articles that had accumulated. And when was I going to start to do something with my stress? I didn't even know yet that my cortisol was down to nothing. And then the second thing I kept coming across in all of the conversations in these symposiums was toxic load. And so I decided that's where I was going to start. I was going to learn how to control my stress. And then I was going to dig into where were the toxins in my life. And they were everywhere. First thing I looked up were my cosmetics, very expensive French cosmetics. They were a 9 on a 10-point scale. I was appalled. In the beginning, I got really angry. Why wasn't my government protecting me? And then it occurred to me, we need to protect ourselves. We need to join together and we need to stop buying this stuff. And so people don't necessarily want to hear about where all the toxins are. I've been told toxins are boring. I've been told toxins are depressing. Guess what? We're 37th in the world in health, and it's because of the toxins. It's what's wrong with our healthcare system. And we all need to pay attention and stop buying this stuff.
Yeah.
So you changed a lot of your lifestyle. I changed almost everything about mine. And for years, I ate the standard American diet. I didn't know I shouldn't be eating that. I didn't know all those chemicals were poisoning me. I had no idea. And GMOs had actually even been on the ballot in California and lost because there was so much misinformation put out about GMOs and how they literally either are drenched in glyphosate, which is Roundup, or they have Bt toxin in them, which blows up the little bug's belly, but it's blowing up all our good gut bacteria too. So I immediately stopped eating anything that was genetically modified. And then I started to look into what could I eat. I was coming home and eating as fast as I was working all day. And I didn't want to cook, even though I grew up learning how to cook. I was living alone and I didn't want to have to spend the time to do that. So it was easier to go through drive-through or easier to get a box and make it, or a frozen meal that is as full of chemicals as the boxed processed food is.
Yeah, I was a big frozen meal. I don't want to say addict, but addict, because I was on the go like yourself all the time. I mean, it was from one assignment to the next, and like I say, getting up at 3. That's just the way it was. If I wanted to excel at what I was doing, I had to work the hours, put in the time, skip the other things, and that meant a lunch or a dinner or a breakfast. So, yeah.
Right. You found the time by cutting out other things that probably were very important to your health, but allowed you to concentrate on the job. I was doing the same thing. And I was traveling all the time. I was getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning to jump on airplanes constantly.
Yeah, I've stopped doing that now.
Yeah, I avoid that like the plague. Plus, I was going overseas all the time. I designed jewelry for big box retailers like Kohl's and Macy's. And so I was always traveling. Um, and that's not good for your health either. I was not, even though I sleep pretty well, I was never getting 7 continuous hours of sleep. And I was always up and on the go and rushing and stressed that I was going to miss the plane or I wasn't going to get to the hotel on time to get my room or make it to my appointment on time. Craziness. So, yeah, I know exactly what you were going through, even though it was from a different industry. We were both abusing our bodies in the same way. And our bodies, I read a statement recently that I love. Our bodies talk to us all the time, which I was amazed at how smart my body was when I listened to it. But they don't speak in language, they speak in symptoms. And we have to slow down and listen to what it's saying.
I agree with you. That's part of the problem I think we have as human beings is we don't listen as much as we talk. And it's more than just talking and listening, but also it's our rush to get to the next assignment, our rush to get the next paycheck, earn the next dollar, where we're not listening to ourselves. And then it doesn't help when a traditional medical professional says, hey, take one of these twice a day and you'll be fine. Now, do I have to take certain medications to help?
Yeah, I do too.
Multiple sclerosis, I have no choice. I've seen what's happened to people who haven't, but I've wiped out a lot of the other stuff. And I've been told I actually took, after my back surgery, as soon as I found out what he thought, I took the pain medication he gave me. I said, you know what? Nope. Walked into the bathroom and flushed it down the toilet. Said, it's just, I can't. It all started to make sense. And then when I saw the doctors at Mount Sinai, they confirmed it. I started doing my own research, finding out more just in their waiting room, the brochures and the different pictures. And you'd see patients at various levels of progression walk in and out or wheel themselves in and out in a wheelchair. And I said, nope, not signing up for that.
Yeah.
So
and
I've been
thank
able
God
to.
you did, because that's why you are still here and as healthy as you are today. You made the decision that you were going to own it and you weren't going to go there. And I think a lot of people just say, okay, this is my fate. And it's not.
No, I'm with you. And I have certain damage that's not reversible, certain nerve damage that has changed me. I have a condition called drop foot that's why I walk the way I do with a cane or a walker, because my left foot doesn't function the way that it always did. And it's odd because I see people a lot older than I am, and I'm jealous of them because while they may walk with a slight limp or something, I say to myself, you know what? But at least they're walking. They're not using a cane. They're not using a walker. Or again, like I said, I refuse to go down the road of using wheels, a wheelchair. I just call it using wheels. I just don't want to go there. But we'll see. They've been doing a lot of things. Unfortunately, it's not a political statement, but a big government gets in the way of allowing treatments like stem cells and all that will help make certain repairs on the myelin sheath on my nerves and other things. And I was supposed to travel internationally to Israel before the pandemic. Well, during the time where we got locked down.
Right.
And that was put on hold. Now we don't know. You're lucky these days to be able to get on a plane and go on a short vacation or a short time away. Now things are opening up, but there's a huge backload, a long line of people that were pushed out because of the COVID and now are going to be first in line. So I'm going to see when, but at the same time, multiple sclerosis progresses. And COVID shut me down as far as being able to do a lot of things
Well,
medically.
I don't know about you, but I certainly stayed more isolated than people who are not immune compromised.
I hid out.
Yeah. My husband did all the grocery shopping, all the errand running. And I took it seriously from the beginning because, believe it or not, my grandfather died in 1918 from the Spanish flu in Pittsburgh. So I knew it was going to be bad from the very beginning. I had studied it when I went to college because I didn't understand how he could have died from the flu and that there were 20 million other people that did as well.
Yeah.
So I actually knew the history, and different cities took it more seriously than others, just like now. Philadelphia had a big parade for everyone coming back from World War I, and they were inundated with the Spanish flu. Whereas St. Louis took it very seriously. They all wore masks, they all isolated, they did not get hit hard. So I knew that since I was immune compromised, I needed to be careful. Pittsburgh was somewhere in the middle of all of that. Which is where my grandfather was. But yeah, no, it did. And, I would have taken it seriously had I been immune compromised or not, because I want to protect my neighbors if I'm not protecting me. But yeah, I know it did sort of shut us down.
Yeah, it really has. And it's shut us down, not just that, but the support system we have. And I'm talking about just friends and family, not being able to see people. I mean, I've had a cousin who's passed, none of these are COVID related, but because of age or other things, I had a cousin who's passed away. I had an aunt who passed away during COVID. These are people where you would have got to see them. Now, they're gone.
Right.
And that's what happened.
So now you have your own real estate business.
Yes.
And where did you start? Did you start with food? Where did you start? Because you obviously wanted to change whatever you could to give you more longevity.
Right.
So give me an idea how you went around figuring it out.
I had started out with meditation years ago to help address the stress and do the best I could on the stress and anxiety front. But then I realized, again, you don't know, you figure if it's wrapped and you can buy it in a supermarket that it's healthy, or not necessarily as healthy, but it's not poison. I live in New York and, I've got big retailers, supermarkets, and you never think that they're going to allow stuff on their shelves. Now, most of the time they don't know, and it's a marketing thing.
Well, and it's all connected. Big food is connected to big grocery stores. They're all intertwined, and it's all about money. And that's just the way it is. I don't say that necessarily as a criticism. Big food isn't concerned about our health. They're concerned about their profits.
Just as many doctors are, and in fact, most, I could say, probably are connected traditional doctors not the, not the neuropath, but are connected to the pharmaceutical companies.
It's
I
their
mean,
number one source of information.
right. Growing up, I was used to seeing pharmaceutical reps coming in and out of my dad's office, seeing these people show up at what if I would, be at a hospital or something, a doctor's office that wasn't my father or my uncle or my grandfather, where pharmaceutical reps were regular. And I actually have two friends from high school that are pharmaceutical reps. Now, I don't want to say my anti-medicine, but my stepping away from that causes issues with certain people because it's so ingrained, because most people don't get sick like we did,
Right.
but they, if somebody's making a really good living pushing prescriptions, who am I, in their opinion, to say no?
And most people, we have been programmed to go find the magic pill. And guess what? The magic pill doesn't exist.
Right.
They come with gifts and they take away. There's something on the dark side of every single one that gives you a gift. That's fine as long as you own it, you research, and you know what it's giving you and you know what it's doing to you. It may be the right solution for you, but at least research it and know that.
Yeah, well, even the drug I take, the infusion that I have, I really feel I have to take to help with the progression is now. I was there when it was being vetted by the FDA, and I was part of that group because I've been in this so long. And but now there are commercials for it, and like with many medications, when they have prescriptions or a drug like that, there are disclaimers at the bottom, and I look and I say, "Wow!" And now I see other drugs that are coming out, and I say, wow. I mean, they tell you, well, this is supposed to help you with this, but in the other vein, it can kill you.
Right. Right. And they do that real quick and the
Real
writing is
quick,
really
real
little.
small, and it goes
So you have
real
to, and
quick.
you're not even really listening to any of it.
Yeah, in fact, you see, they always show the people, like they're not going to show somebody like me in their MS drug commercial. They're going to show the guy who's living great, living really well with it, who may not have the same type I have or be looking at it. They may show them originally at the beginning of the commercial with a sad face, and then at the end they're all smiley, happy, running around with their family, doing this and that. And yes, I wish there's a lot of things I wish I did. A lot of things I can still do, but a lot of things I wish I could still do that I don't do anymore. I can't do anymore. And I've been told don't do it anymore because of balance issues and things like that. Certain sports, I was an athlete. I had to give up because I could get injured just trying to play a sport. I mean, when I have optic issues because of the optic, I've been told don't play catch with your son because if you don't see the ball coming at, and it's happened where I thought it was coming a certain way. I put my mitt out and it hit me in the chest or hit me somewhere else because you're not seeing things from a different vantage, the same vantage point. It's also, I have a handicap pass with my car. And there are times where I go places and people look at me or ask me. I've actually had people come up and say things to me, not so nice, because they're like, you're a young guy. And I'm like, well, I look younger than I am probably because I eat so well now and I eat so clean, where I think a lot of us would look a lot better if we ate clean.
Yeah.
But that's the way it is. So they, and you don't know what to say. I mean, it's not something that you can't be, it's not, you're going to get into an argument with somebody because they want to complain about something. But if all of a sudden I get out, they say they see the young guy, and this happened actually a couple of weeks ago. And then when I got out of the car, I also happened to pull the walker out. And then they looked at me, looked away, and then just went the other direction. And I thought to myself, okay, just let it go. That's all you can do. And I've used meditation now for years. I did to try and address my stress versus that. I wanted that approach at first. It was the no woo-woo type. I was pushed off from a lot of it because of what I call the woo-woo or the Eastern medicine, and some of the people who represent in the space. But I found it what worked for me.
I want you to explain. You talk about three different kinds of meditation, and that literally has saved your life and brought you to this point today. So explain what the three different kinds of meditation are that you utilize and how you learn to do them.
Well, I had started out with using the stuff you traditionally see with like a Deepak Chopra, where is again, a very Eastern, again, Dr. Chopra is a doctor, and a very more of an Eastern approach, a heavy in mantra. And then it was transcendental meditation. But then, and that was great, but I found there was still a lot of spirituality with that. And then I went and decided, I really need to create my own type, a blend of everything, which is it's it's easy to meditate is what the course and all that is called, but it's the SB6 method, but just really stress buster 6 um, versus BS. So yeah, I know that was, I remember speaking to somebody said, really, you're going to use that term, huh? I said, no, I'm not going to use that term. So I said, I wanted to come up with something that was non-spiritual, again, I'm a corporate guy, former corporate guy from New York City. And it was not, well, there are some people who would accept some of the more traditionally termed or utilized. Also, I wasn't very heavy into always using a mantra, or there was certain spirituality things about meditation that, look, again, it just didn't match up or jive with me. So I had to work to create my own type and my own and brand it, because what happened was after it was started working for me and people noticed the difference, they said, can you teach me? So I started teaching. First I was teaching colleagues. Then I was asked, I'd spoken to my doctors there. Again, some of my doctors are younger. So while they may be MDs, they see things a more holistic approach. They've been very big supporters of my utilizing it. I've taught it to other people with different ailments, different sicknesses, but predominantly towards people in the workforce, because especially during COVID, we've been exposed. The stress, the anxiety, so many things have been exposed. It was almost a perfect storm for a lot of things.
Certainly, the reason we got hit so heavily in this country is because we eat so poorly and we are so stressed.
Yes. Our natural defenses are down.
Right.
I mean, like I said, I have had, again, a good friend from high school that passed away. This person, and again, I'm not being critical of him, but he was very overweight, ate a lot of bad stuff, drank a lot, and didn't take care of himself. And when he got COVID, he went downhill real quickly. But then you've got people, I know there are a bunch of people who are in the alternative space, as far as they've taken very good care of themselves, nutritionally, physically, and when they got COVID, they got sick, but they got sick. They didn't die from it. I'm not a doctor, so I don't know. There may have been other things there, but as far as eating right and taking care of yourself, not filling yourself with lots of toxins, that's what you need to do.
And having a stronger immune system.
Have a strong immune system, right? Because we've got compromised immune systems, so you've got to try and fill the gaps where you can.
Right. So how long after you discovered you had MS did you start to design your own form of meditation?
Well, I had started meditating before, but not as stringent. I didn't have a stringent practice. I mean, there were days I missed things I didn't, I said, all right, today is a non-really stressful day. Like I might have been on vacation. You wake up and you look out the hotel room and you see the ocean, things like that. And right away, the stress is gone. But then I realized, you know what? a few years afterwards, once I was diagnosed, and I definitely needed something because these stressors were popping up. And then again, when my children were born, my wife's had issues as well from different things.
Well, and all of this would also help her cancer and help
Yeah,
her ward it off in the
it,
future because they all start in the same place.
yeah, and people who, even though they may have not learned from me or trained with me, they've started their own practice. It's been a life changer for many people, especially then they've been able to go through COVID with fewer things affecting them. Uh, Not political, but the last few years have been a very, if depending on what side you're on, things go up or down. People go crazy over things, and it's like, you know, turn the TV off and meditate. Use the time instead of watching the news to meditate. I mean, because
And watching
even
the news is just aggravating. It doesn't
right,
matter which side you're on.
yeah, even if like I did watch the news for a little bit this morning, and here's the thing: there was nothing political when I put it on for the few minutes I put it on, but they talk about the car accident that happened last night, the local, or something else going on locally. That it's just news. Who's fighting amongst who,
For
with
some
what.
reason, our news is never what's going good
It's
in
yeah,
life. It's what's gone wrong.
right. It's very rare that it's good stuff. More likely than not, it's the chaos that the news really breeds on. They love. So yeah.
So you started doing it on a more regular basis. How
Every day, every
every
day,
day, every day.
every
So
every morning. One of the first things I did, I would drink a glass of water and I would take a seat. There were times maybe I would go check email or do something I had to do quickly. But I haven't missed a day in years. Years.
and how long do you meditate for?
Varies. Some days I'll meditate if I'm say I'm going to go somewhere. It might be 5-7 minutes is the most minimal, but that's rare. Usually the minimal is 10 to 15 minutes for me. Usually it's 20 to 30 minutes for me every morning. And what I found is if I've done a shorter meditation, I may come back and then do another 10 or 15 minutes later in the day. But it's just a reset, a stress buster, that sort of thing, which is what the SB6 method is. It's a stress buster. It really changes things for you.
Well, and we all have a certain amount of stress, but it's when it goes into toxic or chronic stress that it starts to become a core place where disease begins to happen.
Yeah, and we look, it's still younger, but the older you get, your kids get older, they have different things. What happens is what's your wife's problem or your husband's problem becomes your problem. What your kid's problem becomes your problem. What's the locality's problem is your problem. A plane. I mean, we've all sat on planes waiting for them to take off, where you've been there a half hour, just waiting, or other things going on that have really stopped things from happening. So the stress is always there. I call it a stress tsunami. The question is how wet do you want to get?
Right, right. And how long, when you started regularly meditating, did you start to feel a physical change in your body?
Within a couple weeks, I felt the change. I mean, the serious change. I mean, the kind of change where I realized it. Did I feel relaxed after the first time? Yes. But it was where things started changing in me, where people were then noticing and saying to me, they use the word, you're not triggered over something, or something doesn't seem to bother you as much anymore. I said, it's kind of like it goes. And no, that it's not like, yes, you still have stress. Yes, you still have things
We all
going
have
on.
stress.
We all do. That's something that's never going away, but it's I tell people it's how you address your stress is how it works. So
Now, were you already changing your diet at the same time?
when I was diagnosed, I actually, it's funny, but not funny. I told my wife we're going to go to this place near us, and I'm just going to have my big, it's called the cheeseburger, Westchester Burger where I live, and go and have my burger and my fries and all that, and kind of get it out of me. Had my wings, all those things.
Your
Felt like
last
junk.
supper.
Oh, it was like a last supper, and I felt like junk for a few days. But you know what? I said I'm just going to do this, and then it'll give me a point. I use the term a lot, pivot. I tell people you need to pivot, whether it be MS, whether it be cancer, whether it be one of the other more than 100 autoimmune diseases out there, or even if you have no autoimmune disease and people are not eating healthy, they're eating a lot of chemicals. They're eating a lot of things they shouldn't be eating. But you know what? You got to take it upon yourself to make the changes.
Yeah, you own you. Nobody
You
else
own
is going to do it for you.
nobody. And as much as you can ask a spouse or you can ask a friend or ask a child for help, one of the things people, unless they've experienced something, they don't know. I mean, even my wife years now says, certain days, certain things, she goes, I don't know what you're going through. I can't. Just like with her with cancer, there's certain things I can't know what she's going through. Part of me says I don't want to know what she's going through because it only will aggravate my. But you know what? She's my wife. Just like she wants to know what's going on with me. So what we do is we need to be there for each other, supportive of each other. That's why I created the Meditation Not Medicine community, because I tell people it's not simply a website. It's not simply a technique, a book, this. It's all about a community and supporting each other. Yes, to have a community that lasts long, it has to be monetized. But, if you can help people, I mean, I've given, like yourself, you do speaking, I've given talks where I've had people run up to me afterwards and I've thought, oh, I'm about to get run over. And what it turns out is that they are, they just want to thank you. They want to, you've opened their, I was doing a talk in Philadelphia. A lady came running up to me and it was more of a mother type hug, where I get it because it turns out until somebody comes out and says something, people know people have had MS, people know people have had cancer and other autoimmune diseases and other things going on. And we're not all willing to talk about it. But I said part of if it's healing at all, I don't know, but is talking about it, is expressing it and saying it. So
That's actually the last stage of healing, when you have started to heal yourself and you get out because you then want to be the catalyst that helps other people start their own healing journey.
That's the perfect word, catalyst. It's you want to help others. You want to help others help themselves, because like many others, I've lost faith in some doctors, not all. I've lost faith in some practitioners, not all, because they're not just doctors, they're nurses, there are other people. And they'll come in and, like when I'm in the hospital, they'll come in and they'll talk to me. After a while, they know what to say. They know to say it the right way because they've seen so many people, and they want to give you hope. They want to give you, help provide you with a vision for the future of the way things can be, not the way that they are or that they will always be. And not just a catalyst, but I want to be an advocate for others. And because not everybody knows what to do, and not everybody has a supportive spouse or a spouse at all, or supportive children. There's a lady that lives in my town who has MS and has a nurse come in once in a while to help her. But there's nothing, she doesn't have she's much older. She has no kids locally. She has no spouse. The spouse had passed away. And sometimes we just need to lean on each other. And that was the idea, if somebody could lean on me. I mean, I have a wonderful team around me that I've been able to bring into the loop, and they could see sometimes where I can't do things and they'll step up and do them and not even tell me they're doing. I'll look and see they're done. Or my wife says, I bought this, but I bought this kind because I knew you could have it too. You could enjoy it too.
The
For me, it
Blue
is.
Zone study has shown that the number one most important thing to health is community. And so that has also brought you to this point where your meditation is working as well as it is, where you have formed a community of support and that you're supporting. And all of that is a big part of your health.
Correct. Yeah, it's about helping you help it yourself by helping others too.
Oh, absolutely. I know.
There's a lot in it. So I do
And
what I can.
And in the beginning, I got frustrated because I was speaking to local hospitals and people weren't adopting what I was recommending. And somebody said to me, your job is not to do the work for them. Your job is to tell them what you went through and how it helped you.
Yep. And
It's their job what they do with it. But what your role is no less important that you're going out and talking about it, because maybe it won't be you that gets through, maybe it's the next guy. But if they hear it, eventually they will start to change. And it was good that I put it into that perspective because I was getting stressed that it wasn't working the way I wanted
no,
it
I
to.
agree with you. And the telling people to meditate and not take a pill. Now, and I never tell anybody to not take a pill. What I do is, and I make that disclaimer right there because I'm not a doctor. And you don't want the person who really needs a specific pill to stop taking it. There are people with certain conditions, and again, I take certain medicine called Ocrevus, an infusion twice a year. But there's other things, you shouldn't, I don't practice a medical, but I tell people, look, this is what's working for me. This is what's working for others
Right.
that I've worked with, and try it. If it works for you, and look, I don't take any medications for stress or anxiety or anything like that. And yes, the doctors, recently I was on a call, and doctor says, well, I can prescribe this for you. I said, no, thanks.
Yeah.
No, thanks. Pivot. I'll do something else.
I actually did I had a terrible problem with anxiety. My mother was a worrier and I inherited that from her. And it ended up that I actually did have a chemical imbalance. And I took a supplement that Metagenics made. I only took it for about 8 months, but it balanced me out. All the worry went away. It was not a pharmaceutical, but it worked on me. And thank God, because I had such a busy mind driving me crazy all the time with all the terrible things that could happen before they ever even thought about happening, that to get rid of the anxiety was a huge step forward with my stress.
People need to put the brakes on and stop. That's why I tell people, the brake, you do have a brake, your own personal brake. It's not like a car brake or a truck brake or anything like that, but it's a brake from the standpoint of it does something similar. It slows you down, it stops you. You need to do that. And our world is overrun by a stress tsunami. And COVID didn't help things. And crazy politics and elections, no matter what you
And the
think on
two
what's
sides that you should do
the two
this and you
sides,
shouldn't do this. Oh
you
my
shouldn't do
God.
this. Yeah. And it's just like you see commercials, eat this, no, eat that. It's all about money. What soft drink is paying for the rights to this game or that game so they could promote themselves. I haven't had a soft drink in, it's got to be over a decade. Let me just say that.
Congratulations. It is pure gut rot.
Gut rot.
I stopped drinking it even before I got sick because it just didn't seem like it could, whether it was sugar or non-sugar, it didn't seem like it could be good for me. And
No,
thank
that too.
God.
But yeah, one of my grandfathers was actually a dentist, not a doctor, but a dentist. And he would tell me, he'd say, you can't do that. You can't be drinking that stuff. And that's,
Yeah, it eats your tooth enamel. It does all
oh,
kinds
it
of
was
nasty stuff.
no. And then even my current dentist now, a lot of them are they live in the whole cut to cure. Drink the soda, do that. Not because they care about what happens in your gut, because they know you're coming in for a filling.
Right.
At the end of the day. And that's one problem with our current system.
Well, because they want you to keep coming back, even though they might be the nicest person in the world and not even be aware that that's what's influencing.
Some of them are so well intentioned, but and again, I say this respectfully, my father, a doctor before he passed away, a doctor for a long time, and my father did not die young. He was from the cut to cure. mindset. Take a pill approach mindset. A very different approach than many modern doctors are.
But that's how they actually teach them in medical school. I discovered in all my research that medical schools were started by pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
And so that I just interviewed a woman who was a doctor from Russia. And she came here and she started to study to take her exams because she wanted to practice medicine here. And she said the entire exam was, this is the symptom. What pill are you going to match to it? And the Russian approach was much more holistic. And so she decided that even though it was obviously going to be valuable that she had her medical background, she went back to coaching school like I did so that she could help people from a more holistic lifestyle point of view. And she didn't become a US doctor. And they don't know how to advise you on lifestyle. They never learned it. So if a doctor says you need to lose weight and you say, okay, how do I do that? They don't know. They haven't learned that. That's not in their bailiwick. A functional doctor is a little different. My functional doctor will always start with the holistic approach first, even though she graduated from Yale Medical School. She can prescribe drugs, but that's not the first place we go.
Funny you say that because yeah, no, all the doctors, and again, it was because of where I was exposed with my father, my grandfather, all being Ivy Leaguers, and yeah, but it's all that one size fits all. Take a pill. That's how they
Right.
were taught many years ago, and that's how they practiced.
And she went back to get her functional medicine certification because she got sick. She's just like a lot of the other functional doctors that got sick, couldn't help themselves and couldn't help their patients. And it wasn't what they signed up for. They really wanted to help people. So they discovered there's another way. But I'd love to think functional medicine is the future, but there's not as much money in it.
Well, yeah, and it's a lot of politics involved, and it's not about
Uh-huh.
left right. It's all about the drug companies and others that are pushing them because drug companies don't make money by people eating fruits and vegetables and other things. I take like there's these I forget what it's called here. This balance of nature. I take that every day. Just to make sure I'm getting certain things. It's all natural. There's no fillers, no anything in it. In addition to eating, I mean, I've probably eaten more fruits this
Yeah, I
morning.
keep track of what colors I eat
Yeah,
every
no,
day
I'm
because
a
they
big,
work together and create a little party in your body
right,
that
yeah.
creates health. So,
And there
but
are
most
there
people
are
don't know
doctors,
that.
right? There are doctors out there who specialize in eating certain types of foods. They look at the different approach. So.
So, yeah, but you did clean it up. Now, has this also improved your wife's health?
Yes, but she's still unfortunately part of her problem is she goes back to that most of her doctors are at one of the large Ivy League institution hospitals out of Philadelphia. I won't say which one, there's only one, but which one. My wife is a graduate of that. My wife went to University of Pennsylvania undergrad, and 2 of her 3 graduate degrees are from Columbia. So these are people she's known. Some of these are doctors that she went to school with herself. And they tell her, Haley, do this, Haley, do that. So she does it. And while she sees benefits and does certain things, it never sticks. There's always let's go back.
It's
And
yeah, I actually have come to the conclusion and just started running sugar and processed food detoxes because until you break that addiction, you really can't put sustainable habits into place for your eating because it mucks with all your hormones. Those foods give you a dose of oxidosa. Um, it lights up your brain like a pinball machine. And so it's hard to pull away from it. It's muting your own feel good hormones, your dopamine and your GABA and your serotonin. So unless you break that, you don't even have the taste buds you need to eat the good food because they don't taste good because you're eating all these fake chemicals that have been made to um, mute your own taste buds. So, and what I found out, which I've had a weight issue my whole life, they turn off 2 little hormones I didn't even know I had that regulate appetite called ghrelin and leptin. And so you're eating long past when you want to eat because you don't know you're full. So you got to get off that stuff or you don't stand a chance to get the sustainable habits into place. But once you break the detox and you detox away from them, it doesn't really take that long to then start to feel the difference of eating real food of all the different colors.
Very true. Very true.
And so that's what saved my health. Certainly my functional doctor saved it because we went on a treasure hunt. She found all kinds of things going on. She didn't run one test similar to my conventional doctor, but it started with food. And so I'm very faithful to buy at a farmer's market if I can, because then it just got picked. So its nutrients are prime when it hits my plate. My body, and I know how to get quiet and listen to my body now.
Yeah,
So
you
if
did
I could
influence
just
the
get
vision.
people to try it, after 3 weeks, pretty much the addiction is broken. But until you do it, it's hard to sustain.
Yeah. It takes some time and some effort, but it's well worth it.
Yeah. And do your kids eat healthier because you are?
Let's put it that my kids are not like other kids from the standpoint I won't let them eat a lot of they don't drink sodas or juices like the processed stuff. They're the only thing they actually drink in my home is water. Um, my one son, the younger one, he occasionally has some milk, but what I try to do is put almond milk in it, which is not really milk in my opinion, but in there. And so then he doesn't necessarily notice it. But part of it is because he's had to take some medications. Daniel, my younger, was born premature, and before his seventh birthday, had 6 surgeries.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he was born premature and had issues, still has some issues, but he's doing really well. And, I tell my wife, there's certain things we're never going to agree 100%. And I think you find that in a lot of
Well,
families.
and you can't push people. They have to come to their own conclusions. You
Right.
can only lead by example.
Right. And until they feel something like we do, or have a medical issue like we do, they don't try something different.
Yeah, the old sick and tired of being sick and tired syndrome.
I use that term often.
So do your kids meditate? Have they learned how to do that?
No, I've given them I've tried to, but at this point it's just more like little quiet timeouts where we'll sit there together, TV off, lights down, showing them how to breathe in through their nose, out through their mouth. And I believe over time, especially my older one, he's starting to ask and want to do things.
I'm sure it will influence them.
I think it definitely will influence them because it's so a part of their lives now. And what I do is a part of their lives. It's become a part of their lives. And what I've become known for is the meditation guy by a lot of people. That's, they see things, they hear things. And my older recently told me he was proud of me. And I thought that was great considering he's 10 years old.
I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a great thing because again, these are kids who my kids were a couple of years ago. Again, contrary to what I wanted, my wife and I, we would disagree, but they were like other kids. They eat a Happy Meal at one of the fast food restaurants or something like that, or they didn't eat perfectly. Like when we make them pasta at home, they don't realize I'm making them gluten-free pasta. Things like that, or I'm using a natural sauce versus something like one of the traditional sauce makers. They don't notice the difference.
No. And they will. I just did 4 podcasts on the health of children because I'm concerned that 54% of our kids have chronic illness. And I did not have children, but I'm married to a man that did. And he's constantly telling me children are little pictures. What they see you do when they become adults is going to be how they raise their children and how they're going to live their lives.
Right.
So they may not realize you're doing all those things now, but they will, and they will look back on it and it will influence them as adults and the way they raise their own children.
Correct.
So it's important.
Yeah.
If you were going to tell people with MS what the biggest takeaway from you is, why don't you share some of your wisdom because we're coming to the end of our time together and I want to make sure you have an opportunity to say that.
Well, eat better, eat clean is the first thing. I would tell people stop drinking processed sodas or anything like that, juices even. Most of the juices are really just junk. But as far as stress goes, meditate. Forget the medicines. Really. There's an alternative approach. I use meditation like I had to have when I had to have a knee surgery for and it was a quick knee surgery. Uh, but they were asking me. They said we haven't even given you your medicine yet. And your eyes are closed. Actually, the nurse came up to me. She goes, "You're awake, right?" Who didn't want me to fall asleep. And I said, I was just kind of winding myself down, breathing, meditating, thinking, visualizing the way things are going to work. I think visualization is a huge tool also.
Yeah.
It's not often taught. In fact, most of the time, you know, they tell a kid or tell somebody, think about this or think about that, but they don't teach kids and they don't teach other people how to do it. So I tell people, and address your stress with meditation, not medicine. It's make sure you're seeing the right doctors, the right practitioners. Not the one size fits all, take a pill approach is not the ideal way.
And own it yourself.
Own it. I mean, granted, there are going to be diseases where there are going to medications may be the only choice to address certain things, but that doesn't mean it's the only way. It's not. It doesn't mean that it's the only thing you have to do. I mean, I tell people I've had friends with cancer where I've said to them, yeah, I know you're getting chemotherapy, but that doesn't mean you can have a cheeseburger when it's done, from McDonald's or something like that when it's done. Eat something else, and a lot, again, read the labels. A lot of the stuff that we grew up with is not the same. It's processed now.
Yeah.
It's also become so commercialized.
Yeah, I figured out if I couldn't pronounce it or I didn't know what it wasn't going to go into my body because I couldn't keep track of all the chemicals that are in that food and know which ones were the ones that were really bad for me and which ones weren't. So if I couldn't pronounce it or I didn't know what it was, I just wasn't going to eat it. And you can do that. And there are still some processed foods that are like that. But obviously, if you're buying real fruits and vegetables, you don't have that issue.
No, I agree with you. And that's why I showed you that, the balance in nature stuff I take. It's because I can't eat as many fruits and vegetables as I would like to. I don't have my appetite's changed. I mean, I've lost a lot of weight since I stopped taking a lot of the traditional medicines and eating a lot of the traditional foods. And the reason is they were junk.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. I told you I had a weight problem. When I started eating real food, I do not diet. I do not count calories. I have lost 60 pounds.
That's amazing.
It just fell off.
Congratulations. That's amazing. That's exactly the kind of way I haven't lost that many pounds. I don't know if I had that many to lose, but
you didn't probably, and I did, and I'm not quite done, but it's a work in progress.
But it's eating well, eating the rainbow, but that rainbow doesn't mean eating blue because the cookie wrapper's blue. It means eating, or you know what I'm saying, eating foods of certain colors. Right. And being careful of what you buy. And also, there's nothing wrong if with washing some vegetables or fruit off of. Be careful how you do things. You don't want to add more toxins with certain soaps.
And if it's on the dirty dozen side, you make sure that you buy organic if you have limited money. If it's on the clean side, it doesn't matter. But know even what they're spraying your food with, because that's an eye-opening experience.
We're seeing there was the big lawsuit. I don't know if it was out in California or the Roundup or whatever. A lot of people have been affected by this. It's just like, again, I'm a New Yorker, 9/11, a lot of the chemicals affected people. It had nothing to do with food, nothing to do with health, but the chemicals that we don't even know are in our desks, our walls, our bathrooms, our kitchens, everything. It's amazing.
Yeah, we actually did. I got married 6 years ago. I was with a guy when I got sick who didn't like it that I was sick. So obviously we didn't stay together, but I found somebody who wanted to go on a get well journey with me. So when we sold his house, we used some of the money to detoxify my home. And we changed the paint to a low toxin paint. We changed the carpeting to something that wasn't going to off gas. The linoleum is not glued down. They're pieces that fit together and they don't off gas. All of that has helped me improve my health and release my pain. So it's been very positive. There are toxins everywhere, but you can't eliminate them all at once.
It's true. There's mold and other things too.
Yeah. everything you release and everything you lower the toxicity of is one step closer to health. So you just keep working on it, and you keep researching, and you keep studying, and you keep making better decisions.
True.
So, okay, thank you so much. I'm so
Thank you
happy
so
that you
much,
came
Cheryl.
on my show and that people are going to get to hear this.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm going to put the link to your book right under this so that people, when they go to listen to this podcast, will be able to pick it up.
Yes, ma'am.
And you have a website, so I will send them there. Do you want me to send them to your Facebook page?
No. What you can do is they can get a free copy of the book in a PDF format. It's again, just give it to them, because frankly, if we can help people help themselves, again, I can't make somebody meditate. We can't make somebody eat right or eat differently. But if we encourage them, because I think we're prime examples of what happened when we weren't necessarily at one point eating right, or again, working in the environment I did. And yes, I made money. Yes, I traveled. Yes, I did different things. But you know what? Now while I still make money, I don't travel and do things the way I wanted to, because it's not as easy to do that.
Right.
For me and for my family. And frankly, for me, I'm still a younger guy. And I have a problem sometimes being seen with a walker at 52 years old.
I
And
understand
my eyes have changed. I don't see the way I used to. I wear reading glasses. When I had on, I wear my reading glasses. I do things like that so I can see what's in front of me better than I did.
So, yeah. And I don't want anyone to go where we went.
No, I don't want anybody there. I don't want. At times when I've been in the hospital or I've seen things. Also, again, we've talked about the way we reacted to the COVID vaccine. People shouldn't react that way from those. I mean, yes,
they didn't hear that, but we both have gotten the vaccine.
Yeah.
I got the Pfizer. I don't know which one you got.
I did too.
I was hit really hard. It took me 5 weeks to get rid of the brain fog. It slowed me down. I am still happy I got it, because I am too. John has grandchildren. We've been able to see them now. We've started doing small socializing with some of my very dear friends. It's worth it to get it, and it's worth it to protect my neighbors and my friends and my community.
Right, but those of us that are susceptible to other things, the foreign invaders that go in our body, that look, in a perfect world, there wouldn't have been any of that. But you know what? I got it too, and there's a reason, because I need to protect myself, protect my wife, protect my children, protect others that I'm around.
And this is not going to be the last super virus that comes through. You're younger than I am. I'm 72, so I may not see the next one, but you very well may. So we need to protect our immune systems.
Yeah, we do.
And that's another reason why we are eating the way we are, because that gives us a running start to protect ourselves from whatever's coming down the pike.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you so much. I wish you all the best.
Yes, ma'am. And thanks. Same to you. I appreciate you, and I'm grateful to you for having me on. If we can just share our message with people, they just need to keep their eyes open and watch what they eat, where they go. Again, yes, I've had a wonderful career, but I think about it, the expense of what? Yes, I worked for some big people in the real estate industry and you see people on TV and in the newspaper, I've done work for them. I say, that's great. I look at it almost with a trophy type, but you know what? Then I say, but they weren't walking where I was. They weren't going where I was.
Right.
Look at me now.
Yeah, I know. But you've also owned it. If you had not owned it and changed, I probably would not be having this conversation.
I appreciate that. Yeah, no, I own it 100%. I own it 100%. The question is pivoting and handling it.
Right. And being proactive.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll let you know when this is live.
Yes, ma'am. Bye now.